It's Friday afternoon and the clock is ticking. You are working furiously to complete a task before the 5 o'clock deadline, while silently cursing yourself for not starting it sooner. If you are a procrastinator, then you have probably asked yourself at some point, why do I procrastinate so much, or why do I keep procrastinating even though I know that it's bad for me? These are important questions since understanding why you procrastinate is important if you want to figure out how to stop doing it. What is procrastination? Human beings have been procrastinating for centuries. The problem is so timeless, in fact, that ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates and Aristotle developed a word to describe this type of behavior called akrasia. Akrasia is the state of acting against your better judgment. It is when you do one thing even though you know you should do something else. Loosely translated, you could say that akrasia is a procrastination or lack of self-control. According to psychologists, procrastination is the act of unnecessarily postponing decision or action. For example, if you need to write an essay but end up wasting time on the internet even though you know you should be working, that means that you are procrastinating. Procrastination may relieve pressure in the moment, but it can steep emotional, physical and practical cost. It is often detrimental to people's ability to successfully pursue their goals. For example, students who routinely procrastinate tend to get lower grades. Workers who procrastinate produce lower quality work, and in general, habitual procrastinators can experience reduced well-being in the form of insomnia or immune system and gastrointestinal disturbance. Procrastination can also jeopardize both personal and professional relationships. Why people procrastinate? Procrastination is a trap that many of us fall into. In fact, according to research, around 95% of us procrastinate to some degree. People often assume that procrastination is simply a matter of willpower, but in reality, the situation is far more complex than that. When faced with a decision to make or a task to complete, we usually rely on our self-control in order to push ourselves to get things done. Furthermore, our motivation, which is based on the expectation of receiving some reward for our efforts, can support our self-control and make it more likely that we will get things done in a timely manner. Here are some scientific reasons for why people procrastinate. Anxiety. People sometimes procrastinate because they feel anxious about a task that they need to handle. For example, someone who feels anxious about checking their bills might repeatedly delay doing so, even though this avoidance won't make the problem go away. This issue can be especially problematic in cases where a person's anxiety increases as a result of their procrastination. Perfectionism. People sometimes procrastinate as a result of their perfectionism. Perfectionism can lead to procrastination in a number of ways, such as someone might delay working on their book because they want to every line that they write down to be perfect from a start, which causes them to not write anything at all. Fear of failure. People often procrastinate because they are afraid of failing at the task that they need to complete. This fear of failure can promote procrastination in various ways. For example, someone might be so worried that their business idea will fail that they end up continuing to work on it indefinitely. Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder or ADHD. Some people procrastinate as a result of their ADHD. ADHD is a disorder that makes it difficult for a person to pay attention and control impulsive behaviors. For example, a person might procrastinate because their ADHD makes it hard for them to concentrate on a single task for a long time, especially once it gets boring, so they constantly jump from one task to another without finishing any of them. Depression. Some people procrastinate because they suffer from underlying depression. This is because depression can lead to issues such as fatigue, difficulty in concentrating, and a reduced interest in activities, which in turn can cause people to procrastinate. Lack of energy. People are generally more likely to procrastinate if they suffer from low energy levels in terms of physical or mental energy. For example, someone who is tired after having worked hard all day might find it hard to exercise self-control when they get home late at night, which could cause them to procrastinate on things they need to do. Low capacity for self-control. Self-control reflects a person's ability to self-regulate their behavior in order to bring themselves to follow through on their intention and take action that is in their best interest, particularly in the long term. A lack of self-control makes people much more likely to procrastinate. Distractibility. Distractibility is the inability to focus your attention on one thing at a time or stay focused for long in general. High levels of distractibility can make a person more likely to procrastinate. For example, a student who is studying for test might end up procrastinating because they are constantly distracted by the notification on their phone. Overall, we procrastinate because our self-control and motivation, which might be hindered by factors such as exhaustion and rewards that are far in the future, are outweighed by demotivating factors such as anxiety and fear of failure. How to beat procrastination? It's possible to overcome procrastination, but it takes considerable effort. Changing a habitual behavior consumes a lot of psychic energy. Specifically, if you want to successfully overcome your procrastination, here are the main steps that you should follow. Start by establishing your goals. When doing this, make sure to define your goals as clearly as possible and make sure that these goals are significant enough that they will allow you to make meaningful progress, while also being possible for you to accomplish in reality. Next, figure out the exact nature of your procrastination problem. You can do this by thinking about cases where you procrastinated and then identifying when, how, and why you did so. Prioritize tasks based on how important they are. Get started on tasks by committing to only work on them for few minutes. Remove distraction from your work environment. Identify when you are most and least productive and schedule your tasks accordingly. Create a daily goal and mark a streak of days on which you have successfully achieved it. Reward yourself when you successfully implement your plan of action. Focus on your goals instead of on the tasks that you have to complete. Visualize your future self experiencing the outcomes of your work. Avoid a perfectionist mindset by accepting that your work will have some flaws. Develop a belief in your ability to successfully overcome your procrastination.